With municipal elections just 4 days away and major political parties dominating the headlines this evening, we'd like to focus on minority parties. Let's find out what they have to offer and what their potential roles could be. How would voters benefit from backing a smaller party? We can speak to Shameen Thakur-Rajbansi, leader of the Minority Front, live to us from Durban, and Cape Coloured Congress leader Fadiel joining us live from Cape Town. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's start with you, because the Minority Front, of course, is known to be a party targeting the Indian vote, in particular Durban. You haven't had much success in recent years. Is it time to change strategy or not?
Good evening, Shahan, and of course to your listeners. But I just want to say that yes, you're right. We didn't do so well after our leader, Mr. Rajbansi, had passed on. But obviously, voters have every 5 years to choose parties. And we have stood the test of time. We are a party that's 28 years old. Voters have always had their trust in us, and that is why we've lasted the distance. But in this election, things are looking good. They're looking up. There's a lot of enthusiasm amongst the voters. All supporters are coming back in droves because they are fed up, of course, with the bigger parties and all the false promises that have been made. They've been really used to, the good care that the Minority Front always provided in the past years.
So, Fadiel, I've been reading up on you in particular and what you've been saying on your campaign trail. You've been very unapologetic about targeting the coloured vote, because you say that coloured people have been marginalised for 27 years. Just elaborate for us.
Well, for 27 years, coloured people have borne the brunt of BEE and affirmative action. We sit with the Human Rights Commission report of 2017 that says that since the dawn of BEE and affirmative action, the coloured community has gotten 40% poorer. We had a case in Cape Town, in the Western Cape actually, where 46 posts were available by the Department of Labour. 46 black Africans in particular were appointed, not a single Indian, coloured or white. We took this issue on, and the Human Rights Commission went in and had a full investigation. The result of that investigation was that it found that coloured people were being given a raw deal by the very custodian of the Employment Equity Act, that in his 3 years as the provincial manager of the Department of Labour, the manager had never appointed a single coloured person. There's a clear narrative being run here that there's no place for coloured people. This is not just me saying it. Come to Cape Town, come to the Western Cape, get the feeling on the ground. My surprise was when I went to Wentworth in Durban, I had the same thing. The feeling is the same. This country has fallen out of love with coloured people, and nobody can explain why.
Yet you find that people are still voting in the Democratic Alliance in Cape Town as well as in Durban, Shameen, because you lost a lot of your electorate to the Democratic Alliance over the years. So what are you changing to actually get your voters back? Because your initial message of appealing to the Indian community hasn't worked for you.
Well, actually, it's about money power. Remember, the Democratic Alliance comes in with a lot of funding, lots of sponsorships, unlike our smaller parties. Yes, they do have a lot of the vote share currently, but have they really got things done for our communities? If you look at the way the former Indian communities and townships have been run down, it will show you pure neglect of this party and its false promises. Now, people are well aware of what's going on. They understand that they've been, given a raw deal by this party, and therefore it is people themselves that are now coming, looking for the Minority Front, understanding the role that we've played. Even if you may say it's race-based politics, but if you look at, say, the Democratic Alliance, it's still purely like a lily white party in terms of its complete structure. And people understand that now. They understand how skewed the budgeting is going, why certain areas are given preferential treatment to other areas, and yet their votes are being taken to, increase the numbers for the Democratic Alliance. And I think that there people have caught up with. And that's why they're coming back to the minority front, because it was their initial home and they've never been let down by us. We have always fought for their rights. The areas were clean. The infrastructure was working. There was hardly any crime. And, people had service delivery. Today, they can't find leaders in the Democratic Alliance. You only find them once in 5 years. When it's a big election, then they come to appeal to the Indian voter. But after the 1st of November, they will disappear, and then they'll come back another 5 years later. And, people are fed up with this.
Yeah.
Distrust.
The same could be said for all politicians. They disappear after elections. Fadiel, I want to ask you the similar question about the Democratic Alliance and how they are basically taking control of Cape Town. Lots of coloured people vote for the DA. We know that Patricia de Lille is now trying to appeal to them as well. So what sets you apart? Because that will be the one thing that people look at, right? It's not just about identity. It's what you have to offer as a political party.
Okay, let me start at the beginning. Coloured people have never had a true alternative to the ANC. The Democratic Alliance has run a very slick campaign based on Swat Gevaar. They've mastered it. Look, they've played it for 450 years. We offer the alternative. What sets us apart from every other party vying for the coloured vote is that nobody can question our action. We've taken action every time coloured people have been oppressed. We know when there's gang violence in the Cape Flats, it's the Cape Coloured Congress that rushes to put an end to it. When coloured people are not being employed, it's the Cape Coloured Congress going out and shutting down business, demanding our people's share. When government is hurting us, it is the coloured people taking them on. We shut down the city of Cape Town, you know that well, in the name of the coloured backyarder. No one else has taken the position or the action that we have. We are not a party of speaking. We are not a party of intellectuals. We are a party of doers. You see, 27 years of manifesto promises and thinking has gotten us here as a nation. 3,500 of our sons will die on these Cape Flats this year. Many of them will be my relatives and my friends. We cannot sit back anymore. We cannot hand over our power every 5 years, like my colleague on the other end of the line said. We cannot vote for politicians who will get on that blue bus and leave and come back in 5 years' time. The DA still doesn't have a safety plan for the Cape Flats. I live in a war zone. The DA has nothing to say about it other than blaming the ANC. We should blame the ANC for everything that goes wrong at national level. But at a provincial and a local level, the Democratic Alliance is in fact my government. I cannot turn to my government. It is time for coloured people to own the space that they're in. And the CCC is about to offer them that.
Will you be open to, other race groups at all to expand how you operate as a political party? I'm going to put that question to both of you. So, Shameen, I'll start with you.
Well, if the minorities come together and they work in any sort of arrangement, whether it's a loose arrangement, whether it's a formal coalition, or even if it's an alliance in time to come, then that's the way that we have to go. Because currently our democracy is very fragile. It is continuously evolving, but we don't want it to evolve where it's not within our control or where it goes out of control, like we've seen happening in the years gone by, and even recently with the violence. So I think that we are all here to protect each other, and minorities, just by their sheer number, they may not make it, on their own to pull a lot of power, bargaining power in the different levels of government. But obviously, if they get together in any form of coalition or working arrangement, they'll have a lot of power.
Shameen, I just need clarity on this, because I'm not talking about joining forces with other parties, but if you look at Phoenix, right, you have a community there saying to South Africa, we're not this racially divided community. Black and Indian people live together. White, Indian, black, all live together. So why do you not appeal to an area and who lives in there instead of a specific group? That's the question. Can you expand?
Yes. So now you're speaking about things like social integration, you're speaking about social cohesion. And that, of course, is on the top of the agenda, even of minority parties. Yes, we may be predominantly an Indian party, But if you look at our list even currently, Shahan, you will see that I have got Black African candidates.
Yeah.
Now, and even at our launch, we had a lot of Black African supporters that had come from the Ndwedwe area. Now, there are people that we look after constantly. It's not like we alienate anyone. You look at Chatsworth and Phoenix, there are a lot of Black African people that live there. There's even whites that live there. There's colors. And our doors are open to help all the communities.
Okay.
We don't discriminate, because they're also minorities in a largely or predominantly former Indian township.
All right.
So that is why minority parties are very important.
Okay, get you. Fadiel, are you open to that?
We have a white ward councillor, ward candidate in Ocean View, which is a 100% coloured suburb. You'd be surprised to know how many Cape Townian black people back us. We are open to all races. This party was never a closed shop. We simply did not hide our focus. You see, everybody speaks multiracialism and inclusivity, but when you look at what happens in the parties, there's none of that. If you look at what's happening in the Democratic Alliance, if you look at what's happening in the ANC, the EFF, Freedom Front Plus, none of them are truly multiracial. We are the only party that is saying, this is our focus and this is our core concern. And we are, as you said, unapologetic about it.
All right, thank you both so much for your time. Such an interesting conversation, isn't it? That, of course, was Shameen Thakur-Rajbansi, leader of the Minority Front, and Fadiel Adams, leader of the Cape Coloured Congress.